The Rangers are watching their playoff hopes slip down the drain, and it's all thanks to one of the worst bullpens we've ever seen. It's time for something dramatic to change. We're talking about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 5 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Tuesday, September 5th. Your Rangers are 76-61, holding the third wildcard spot, half a game ahead of the Blue Jays, and sitting 1 game behind the Mariners and Astros in the AL West. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to listen every day and to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into today's episode, this episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you could win up to a 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Now, before we get into the worst bullpen that mankind has ever constructed, I'm going to save that for segment 2 or 3, because I do want to acknowledge some good things that happened yesterday. And I know you may not want any sunshine, but we do have to shine some sunshine on Corey Seager and Mitch Garver yet again, just going absolutely bananas. Corey Seager is the best hitter on the planet. I'm pretty sure he's the best hitter that the Rangers have ever seen, maybe the best hitter that the world has ever seen at this point. Like, it's just honestly insane the amount of value this guy is providing in the games that he's played so far this year. He's a 6.4 baseball reference for player in just 94 games. He's got 28 home runs now on the season. And he might pass last year's career high total of 31 home runs. I'm pretty sure he might pass it by next week with the rate he's hitting bombs left, right, and center. Mostly right, but just absolutely annihilating them. A 453-foot 2-run bomb in the first inning where everything looked joyful, everything looked great, everything was amazing. The Rangers had a 2-0 lead. Nothing can go wrong until the bullpen comes in the game, and well, that was mostly the case for the Rangers. But Mitch Garver hit one 451 feet as well, and Corey Seager's second bomb 422 feet. I mean, these guys just cannot stop mashing baseballs. Right now, Corey Seager has the second best OPS in Major League Baseball at 1,065, and that's only because Shohei Ohtani has just been insane this season, and he might end up being shut down for the year. But it seems like Corey Seager is going to qualify for the league leaders, and he might lead the world in a lot of offensive categories, because this guy, I just cannot get tired of watching Corey Seager absolutely destroy baseballs. I mean, even his outs are incredibly hard hit. I mean, just everything off his bat is like, it's insane. It's honestly insane, the amount of types of pitches. Like, I'm running out of words to describe the good and bad things on this team, and I will never get tired of watching Corey Seager just do so much damage at the plate. Now, he did have a very costly error that kind of turned this game around in a bad way, but offensively, I mean, you can't really fault him for that, because he's an average fielder. Like, he's fine, but this is your shortstop. This is your shortstop that is the best hitter in baseball. Like, this is just like A-Rod. Like, this is basically the same level of production. He's not quite as fast or athletic or as good a fielder as A-Rod, but offensively, he's bringing that type of offensive firepower. Now, I know the raw numbers, he's not going to hit 56 home runs. This is just not the environment for that. This is 2019 juice ball. I mean, he might hit 70 home runs with the amount of damage that he's doing to baseballs consistently, but I just can't get tired of it. And Mitch Garver as well, another massive day at the plate, 2 RBIs, a walk, 2 hits, including that massive shot. I mean, he is just so incredibly important to this lineup, and I think it's just about time to move. I mean, I say that, but I mean, the reason that he got his first RBI on the day was because of a massive double by Adolis Garcia, who continues to come up in big spots and gave the Rangers an insurance run, a 3-0 lead that looked like, well, I mean, the bullpen can definitely blow that, but Andrew Heaney was looking good for the most part. It might have been some underlying data that said he was getting a little bit lucky with some hard hit balls that the Astros were just mashing against him that ended up finding fielders. But offensively, this offense did its job. 6 runs should be enough to win a ball game, especially when your starter only gives up 3, almost gets through 5 innings. But we'll get into that in just a second. But this was just a huge day for this offense. I mean, 4 home runs, including one by Josh Smith, who got his second straight start and also had a walk, 1 for 3 with a walk and a home run as well. OPS is up to 650 on the season. I think we might be seeing him a little more often, basically just based on left-right platoon splits. I don't think he's going to face off in the lineup tonight against the lefty Framber Valdez. I think that'll probably be Zeke Duran. And then once Josh Young gets healthy, I don't know that we'll be seeing much of either of those guys because Robbie Grossman has been providing some pretty consistent offense. I mean, he's been much hotter as of late in the second half. I mean, he hasn't hit nearly as many home runs, but again, he is providing basically exactly what you want from those number 7 and 8 spots in your lineup. I mean, 1 through 6, those guys, I mean, at this point, and whenever Josh Young gets back, it'll be 1 through 7, but the number 8 hitter, which will be probably Robbie Grossman once this team is fully healthy. You want those guys to keep the lineup moving, work those at bats, make pitchers throw a lot of pitches, and let everybody else get some eyes on what the pitcher is throwing that day. And that's something that Robbie Grossman does, something that Josh Smith does as well. And Leody Taveras has some moments of doing that. I mean, he's your number 9 hitter. You're not a whole lot that you're expecting from him offensively, and when he gets hot, we know how much damage he can do, and it seems like he might be around the corner from one of those hot streaks to finish off the season. That would be absolutely massive for this team that really needs it. But Nathaniel Lowe had a rare off day. He had I believe a 15-game on-base streak heading into this one, went 0 for 5 with a pair of strikeouts, but the rest of the lineup was pretty much doing their jobs. Garver and Seager and Heim, who had the loudest, longest single I think I've ever seen, 100 miles an hour off the bat that just smacked up against the wall. And Jonah just, if he had hit it just a little bit higher, or if he hit it somewhere else, if he hit it in Houston, there were 2 balls that inning after the Mitch Garver solo shot. There were 2 different very hard hit balls, one by Jonah Heim, one by Leody Taveras, that would have been home runs in Houston, but were not home runs in Texas. It's just, those really annoy me. Ones where it's like, oh, if you were just in the other place that you're playing against this team, then that would have been a home run. But, you know, maybe it would have been robbed by Kyle Tucker in right field, because that's the kind of thing that he does quite a bit, unfortunately, against this Rangers squad. But the offense did their jobs. They are looking a lot better. It is a positive momentum builder moving forward. But the pitching, yet again, even the starting pitching, did not do its job in this one. Coming up, we're going to look at that and what massive, drastic changes need to be made in the bullpen. But first, this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Sleeper. The MLB playoffs are around the corner, which means the clock is ticking on your chance to win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball has never been more exciting than it is now, with studs like Acuna, Betts, Ohtani, Mitch Garver, Corey Seager. Those guys are absolutely incredible. And now is the time to make your picks on stats for stars like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for up to a 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, or you could win big. And you would win big. Do you think that Marcus Semien is holding a grudge against Framber Valdez for the last game that those two played against each other? Do you think he's going to go yard? Do you think that Adolis Garcia might also go yard against Framber Valdez, just like he did in Houston the last series that these two teams played? Well, make those picks. Use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we'll be wrapping up Game 2 of this series with a fresh starter off the IL in Nathan Eovaldi. The Rangers take on the Astros this week and catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, the Rangers finally announced that Nathan Eovaldi will be starting Game 2 of this series. An important announcement before yesterday's game was that Dane Dunning was available out of the bullpen, so it seems like he is the casualty in the rotation. He is going to be moving back into the bullpen, which is a demotion, obviously, and it's going to be frustrating for him because he's had such a good season. But after the last two starts, I mean, it's kind of you got to ride the hot hand as it is. And even though it is a demotion, it is arguably a important promotion because the Rangers just need good pitchers in their bullpen because it has been so incredibly rough. He's probably going to be the piggyback starter in this game for Nathan Eovaldi. I don't think he goes more than 2 or 3 innings. He hasn't had a rehab start, so he's just going to be coming in. You're going to have to build a whole lot of momentum. It's going to be a tough outing, an important outing. He's going to go up against Framber Valdez, who the Rangers have done a very good job of annihilating, beating him twice this year, including that massive blowout in the final game of the series in Houston the last time these two teams played, which was just one of my favorite, I think definitely my favorite game of the season because it was just so much fun to see them annihilate Framber Valdez. They are getting Nathan Eovaldi back, a huge plus for them. And Dane Dunning, another good pitcher going into this bullpen to hopefully be able to provide some length because he has been stretched out as a starter all year. And the Rangers need some length from their starters. They need some length from the good arms in their bullpen because they haven't really gotten it from Andrew Heaney, the number 5 starter. I mean, he almost got through 5 innings in this one. He almost got through 5 scoreless innings. He had, 2 outs in the top of the 5th inning, and it looked like he might be able to get out of it unscathed. But unfortunately, the Astros rally for 3 2-out runs in the 5th inning, and then 2 2-out runs, back-to-back homers by Glenn Otto in the 6th inning. It's just incredibly frustrating to watch this bullpen blow it yet again because the Rangers offense, like I said, they did their job. But this bullpen, I mean, my God, yesterday's show I talked about how I literally learned new languages. I used Google Translate to come up with new ways to say that this bullpen is bad. But I mean, my goodness, this game was just so brutal. So incredibly brutal. 10 runs, 9 of them were earned, and it felt like all of them were very, very earned. This bullpen the worst culprit was Josh Sborz, who got to 2 strikes often, and this has been the case with bad Josh Sborz, is that he will get to 2 strikes and then not be able to put guys away. I mean, he got to 0-2 on Yordan Alvarez and then ended up walking him. I mean, it felt like everything kind of slipped away from this team when Andrew Heaney had that throwing error on the weak dribbler by Jose Altuve. I mean, he just nearly got out of it and just could not quite do it, which was the story of this bullpen all day. I mean, Glenn Otto went an inning and a third and allowed back-to-back solo shots from not McCormick, from Dubon and Altuve. I mean, Dubon had a multi-home run day. He only had 7 home runs on the season, which at this point was a career high, and he came up big with his 8th and 9th home runs of the season, one off Martin Perez, one off of Glenn Otto, and it was just everybody in this lineup that just got to the Rangers. I mean, Yainer Diaz had a 450-plus foot moonshot, 3-run shot off of Josh Sborz, who just could not get out of his own way. It felt like at times Josh Sborz was one of the Rangers' few good relievers, and he was. And then since he came back from that bicep tendonitis, he just has not been the same in high leverage situations and low leverage situations. He just, for the most part, hasn't been able to get it done. And part of this, what didn't feel like it was entirely his fault, it was a little bit of the fault of Corey Seager, who had just a massive error in that 6-run 7th inning where everything just fell to crap. It looked like a routine double play ball that just went under his glove, and yeah, it would have scored a run. I think it would have been a 2-run game at that point, but instead it scored 2 runs, and the Rangers just could not get out of their own way in that inning. It just, everything fell apart. I mean, it was walks, it was home runs, it was bloop singles, it was just, everything was falling for the Astros. And after this one, it just feels like something massive needs to change. It didn't matter who was throwing. I mean, the only person to come into this game and not give up a home run, well, Heaney didn't give up a home run, but he did allow 4 walks in his 4 2/3 innings. But Austin Hedges was the best pitcher of the day for the Rangers. 2 batters faced, 2 outs, and maybe he's the closer now. I don't even freaking know at this point, but a game that felt like the Rangers had in hand. You get 3 runs in the first 3 innings. The Rangers haven't traditionally done a great job for the last month or so of scoring early in games. It feels like it takes the Rangers getting into a bullpen or getting into the second time seeing a pitcher to start scoring runs. And sometimes the Rangers starters, if they struggle early, then the Rangers can get behind, and then it just starts to spiral from there. But the Rangers had a 3-0 lead heading in with 2 outs in the top of the 5th inning. And that Astros rally just really, really killed the Rangers. But, I mean, the Rangers came up with rallies of their own. I mean, rallying to tie it in the bottom of the 5th inning and again in the 6th inning to get the lead. It was just incredibly frustrating. It was a go-ahead homer by Corey Seager in the 5th inning and a go-ahead homer by Mitch Garver in the 6th inning. And the 7th inning is just where things felt like have gone to die. Coming up, we're going to look at what dramatic changes need to be made in the bullpen, what is even left to do, and why it might be time to start cutting bait on some guys. But first, this word from our sponsors. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Thursday's show, we'll be breaking down this series as a whole and what it means for the Rangers moving forward. The Rangers take on the Astros this week and catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, it feels like it's time for some wholesale changes in this bullpen. I know I just talked about how Spores, maybe he got a little bit unlucky. His expected stats are very good this year. His stuff is very good, and there's always been some hope of the will they, won't they, is he a good reliever, is he not a good reliever? And I think at this point, even though some of this wasn't his fault, just a game like this is just time. It's just time to cut bait on Josh Spores. I just don't think the Rangers can fix him. If the Dodgers couldn't fix him, I mean, they are a much better run organization, much more winning organization, much smarter organization. They've shown that over years and years and years. And if they can't fix a guy, I mean, sometimes just a change of scenery will work wonders. I mean, they couldn't fix Cody Bellinger when he fell into his funk, and it seems like the Cubs have done that. But that seems to be the exception, not the rule. But it seems like the time for Josh Spores being a great reliever is just over. I don't know what the Rangers can get from him at this point, and I don't really know what to make of Glenn Otto. I mean, he gave up those just 2 massive home runs in a spot where you just can't do that. He had 2 outs. I mean, the first 5 runs of this game the Astros scored were with 2 outs. Just get 1 batter out. They couldn't do it time and time again. And I'm just at my wit's end with this bullpen. This is a great Rangers season. It's supposed to be a much greater Rangers season than it's been. I mean, this team, their expected wins-loss ratio is 83 and 54. 7 wins better. They would have, I believe that math checks out to be a 6-game lead in the division. If they had just an average pen, this might be a 105-win team. Honestly, if they had a good pen, this might be a 110-win team. The offense is incredible. Corey Seager is doing historic things. Nathaniel Lowe has been pretty good. Most of this infield has been pretty good. You had 6 All-Stars on this team, and when Nathan Eovaldi comes back and once he gets fully up to speed, this might be the best rotation in baseball with Nathan Eovaldi. I mean, Max Scherzer, John Gray having his moments, Andrew Heaney, we know what he can do, and Jordan Montgomery being mostly pretty good. I mean, this should be a contending team. This should be a team that is the best, has one of the best records in baseball, if not the best record in all of baseball. I mean, this should be a team that this series is just a mildly scary one where even if you get swept, you still have a 3-game lead in the division. That's where the Rangers should have been heading into the series. But instead, It's game after game after game after game where this bullpen just blows leads and blows games wide open and just can't get the job done over and over again. And I don't know what to do at this point. The Rangers don't know what to do at this point. As soon as one guy looks like he's starting to look better, he falls apart. As soon as another guy starts to look better, you throw him in a big spot and then he falls apart as well. I mean, there's no answer really. I mean, Zach Kent feels like the only answer the Rangers have. I think that the roster moves they should make before today's game is option Glenn Otto back down, call up Zach Kent, and then just DFA Josh Sborz. Like, I think it's got to be that time. There's just not a whole lot this team can do to get that much better, and that feels like one of the few options. It's going to hurt if or maybe even when Josh Sborz goes somewhere else and ends up figuring it out, but I just don't think it's going to be here. I think that Zach Kent is one of the few options in the minors that really could help this team, and I don't know what they're doing wasting him in AAA. I mean, there's a few arms in AAA. I mean, I don't have bones about DFAing almost anybody in this bullpen outside of like Will Smith, and I don't know if they DFA'd Aroldis Chapman at this point, I wouldn't be too mad, just because like he has just not been able to get it done in the biggest spots and has an ERA of 3.5, and it feels like an ERA of like 9 in the last 2 weeks, while the entirety of this bullpen has been imploding. But like, I mean, who do you really think is going to come up and save this team? Is it going to be Chase Lee, who throws like 91? Is it going to be Ian Kennedy? Is it Jonathan Hernandez time to come back up? Is it time for Danny Duffy to come up? Matt Bush, who's allowed 2 home runs in 3 innings in AAA so far? Is it Grant Anderson that's going to save this team? Maybe you throw Cody Bradford in these high leverage spots. Honestly, I think that might be the answer, because he's been one of the few people in this pen that can actually reliably get outs and get outs consistently. Like, I mean, Cody Bradford might be the second best reliever. Will Smith might be the best reliever at this point. I don't even know what the answer is. Maybe Dane Dunning going in the pen is going to pitch some high leverage innings, or he's going to be there as your mop up guy. I mean, he did a really great job of that when he was coming in big situations in games where Jacob deGrom had to be taken out or the starter just could not get it done. I mean, he's done very well at that point, and I think just literally adding one more decent pitcher to the bullpen is gonna help, because honestly, how can it hurt? The Rangers had some more moves to be made at the deadline, but I mean, looking back, I mean, maybe anyone the Rangers traded for, just I feel like whatever's wrong with this bullpen is just contagious, because it doesn't seem like it matters who they throw out there, what guys they promote, what guys they trade for. Like, it's just contagious. Like, the bullpen mentality is defeated this year, and bullpens are the most finicky things. And maybe a trade for I don't know, Keenan Middleton would have sent this team over the top. Maybe a trade for, I don't know, maybe if they were able to claim one of those 2 relievers on the waiver wire in Matt Moore or Reynaldo Lopez, maybe that would have changed everything. But I don't know, man. I really just don't know at this point. It kind of just feels like you have to resign yourself that this is going to end up being an incredibly frustrating and lost season because of this bullpen. Like, it's almost entirely squarely on the bullpen. Like, there's just not much more you can look at. The starting pitching is great. The offense is really freaking good. It has moments where it's inconsistent. They're not going to score 10 runs literally every game. They might not be scoring 10 runs in many games moving forward, but for the most part, they have been doing their freaking job. But this bullpen, just time and time again, it's the most frustrating part of a team to have a bad part of, because, you know, you're winning 2/3 into the game, and then that's the only thing, the noise that this bullpen makes when they come into the game. Like, they could have their fun walkout songs of, you know, like Edwin Diaz had with the Trumpet Boy, or you could have Enter Sandman like Mario Rivera. I mean, maybe the sound that needs to come out when these Rangers relievers are coming into a game is just the sound of a flushing toilet, because the games have been flushed away at this point. And I'm literally out of words. Like, there's nothing that can be done to fix it. It is just so defeated that to this point, I'm kind of resigning myself away that even if the Rangers do hold on to that last wildcard spot, which they're only a half game up on the Blue Jays, who will have a decent team, even though the Mariners keep losing games. I mean, the Mariners have lost 3 out of their last 4, but the Rangers have not gained any ground because they have also lost 3 out of their last 4 games. And it's just been it's mind-numbing. I mean, you can just see the defeat in Bruce Bochy's eyes of like, all right, let's call the pen. Let's call the pen. Let's see who's going to blow it away this time. Like, there's just, it feels like there's literally no hope. And I hate being that defeated and that upset, but like, I don't even know what to do at this point. Maybe, I mean, how many relievers on this team even have a sub 3 ERA? There's not many of them. There is, let's see, Chris Stratton, and there is, that's it. It's literally just Chris Stratton. That is the only reliever in this pen that has a sub 3 ERA. Not even sub 2, not even sub 2.5, but just sub 3 of like being fine. Jose Leclerc is close at 3.02. Will Smith is at 3.86. Brock Burke, 3.74. And then you have your next most used guys in Josh Borsch with a 5.8 ERA. Grant Anderson with an ERA over 5. Cody Bradford, his ERA is 4.29, but I feel like I trust him the most. I mean, Aroldis Chapman is at 3.32 ERA. I mean, it's just, there's not much left that this team can do. I mean, maybe if you get real desperate, you can, if you really are feeling like it won't affect the psyche of him, maybe you call up Jack Leiter and put him in this pen if you're just feeling really insanely desperate. That feels like a move that would be, I don't know, incredibly desperate and could be very detrimental to his future and to your future as an organization. But I don't know, maybe that's what you have to do. I mean, Antoine Kelly has been crushing it in Double A. For some reason, he is still in Double A, and I honestly don't understand why. He has a 1.95 ERA in 50 and 2/3 innings, 69 strikeouts to just 22 walks. I mean, I'd call him up tomorrow and just DFA, I don't know, spin the dial and point to somebody. I mean, I feel like I've been screaming for Antoine Kelly to at least get promoted to AAA, because for some reason, he survived the Rule 5 draft. I didn't think he was going to, but he did survive the Rule 5 draft, and he's pitching like this. You're not going to surprise people, but you're going to have to put him on your 40-man roster after this year anyway. Why not just see if he's anything, call him up, and if he's bad, then he's probably not going to be that much worse than the guys you have pitching right now, and at least the other teams don't have tape on him yet, or at least not major league tape on him yet, so, like, why not call him up? Like, you're probably going to lose him this offseason anyway, unless you put him on the 40-man. I don't see him surviving the Rule 5 draft 2 years in a row because his raw stuff is so freaking good. And this year, his numbers are actually good as well. I mean, they were okay last year. They weren't insanely good, but he's the guy who the Rangers got in the Matt Bush trade with Milwaukee. And I mean, this year, he had a 7.23 ERA in Frisco last year in 18 and 2/3 innings. That's kind of probably why he survived the Rule 5 draft, but he was also walking 9.2 per 9. This year, it's down to 3.9 walks per 9. And the strikeouts are up to 12.3 Ks per 9, which he wasn't at last year. So, I mean, why is he still there? I really don't understand at this point. You're probably going to see him go in the Rule 5 draft, and maybe he'll have big league success with whoever drafts him in that Rule 5 draft because he is unprotected, not on your 40-man. You're going to have to make a choice anyway. Again, like, you've got to try something, because trying nothing and just trotting this bullpen back out there time and time and time and time again is going to lose you a playoff spot. And if you even get to the playoffs, it's going to lose you almost all of your playoff games unless you can just completely outslug everybody, which, I mean, this offense is kind of capable of doing, and just surviving and hanging on tooth and nail. I mean, it feels like even a 5-run lead isn't safe with this bullpen. Like, it's honestly insane. It's way too much to ask for this offense, way too much to ask for the starters, but it's become the point where the most important thing for any starter in this rotation is just going deep into games. Like, just getting 6 or 7 innings every time out feels like a must. And even then, even if you do get 7 innings into this pen, there's still times where this bullpen can completely fall apart. And then you have to go into extra innings, even if you have a lead. And we all know how insanely terrible this team is in extra innings, because mainly the relievers are just giving up just so much, just so incredibly much. I mean, I just have lost my words for how bad this bullpen is, how maddening it is, and how much I hate that I have to resign myself to this great season, this mostly very, very fun season, for 2/3 of it just washed down the pooper, because like these Rangers games, the first 2/3 of the game everything looks great. The offense is great. The starting pitching is great. And then down the home stretch, in the most frustrating fashion, the most predictable fashion, every single time, this bullpen gives it up again and again and again. And it is just time for something dramatic to change. I honestly don't really even care what it is, because this is untenable. This is unwatchable. This is unbearable how bad this bullpen is. And it is not something that this team can keep suffering for even one more day. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, even in the bad times. Don't forget to enjoy Pennant Chase Texas Rangers baseball.